Hey there people, how you doing? So, today we have the video comparison between the iPhone 12 and Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. And as we already know, the Note 20 Ultra is basically Samsung's best flagship for 2020. And also, fun fact is that Samsung has been doing an amazing job in terms of catching up to Apple when it comes to video quality and video recording as such. And I think they've done a great job. They're not as good as Apple in terms of the raw quality yet, simply because iPhones are just tremendously powerful and that's just how it's been. I think it's gonna be the same for a while now, but nonetheless, the Android phones, especially the latest flagships, they've gotten very close. Check out my auto comparisons. I compared the iPhone 12 to OnePlus 8 Pro and then also the Galaxy S20 Plus. They gave some very reassuring results in terms of Android video quality. Now it is time to see how the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra performs as compared to the iPhone 12. So let's get started. Alright, now we are recording at 4K 30 on both of these. They can go up to 4K 60. I'll show you a sample soon enough, but yeah, overall I would say that it's nice to see that at least the flagships have the ability to go up to 4K, because that's amazing for vlogging, and those of you who use it, you know, it's an awesome feature basically. And well, I want to see it happen in other smartphones, say the OnePlus or Vivo X50 Pro. Those are amazing smartphones, but they don't have 4K on the front cameras. It'll be nice to have, not that I use it, but for those who do, it'll be an amazing feature. We're also using a studio light back there, and well, basically we're in some of the most ideal lighting conditions that we can get. And yeah, overall, let's see how it goes. I'll let you guys know about my thoughts on color and dynamic range and all that. I'm getting closer to the studio light, and you can see I think either of these phones might end up blowing out or underexposing a little. We'll see. And there we go, 4K 60 on both of these. And yeah, sure, higher frame rate is nice. It looks smooth and buttery and whatnot, but you know, I'm not exactly a fan of the sacrifices you have to make, because basically either you lose out on some stabilization or you might end up losing out on dynamic range. And obviously it usually goes either or, either stabilization or dynamic range is lost. The rest of it remains similar. Maybe some details are lost in 4K 60, so that is exactly why I'm not a huge fan of 4K 60 as such. I feel like if they were able to go up to the amount of detail and polish that 4K 30 has, it would be amazing. 4K 60 would be amazing then, but that's really not the case as of this moment. And as I can see, it's like some of the places are getting blown out on both of these almost. Okay, so for 4K 30 from Selfie video, I do think that the iPhone looks just a tad bit more detailed. It's minor, to say the least, but it is more detailed in my opinion. And I do kind of like the skin tones of the iPhone. It does have an overall flatter look in terms of contrast and whatnot, and overall the video quality is better, and I do like how the colors are being handled on the iPhone. The Note 20 Ultra is not bad, not in any sense of the word, but it still isn't just quite as amazing as the iPhone 12, at least in terms of the 4K 30 selfie video. And audio quality, I do prefer that on the Note 20 Ultra, simply because it does a much better job in terms of cancelling out the crazy noise of the AC back in the background. And it was there intentionally. I cranked it up all the way. I usually don't do that, but for the purpose of testing, the Note 20 Ultra definitely did a better job in terms of removing the background noise and some echo from the room as well. So all in all, the mic quality on the Note 20 Ultra was kind of more impressive in my opinion. But when we move on to 4K 60 on the front camera for both of these, well, I want to say some parts of the overall video falls apart to an extent. It's not crazy. Both of them are still doing an amazing job, and given that there is crazy highlights coming in from the right, both are ending up blowing out some parts of my face, and as you can see, the iPhone might be doing it a bit more. But yeah, overall 4K 60 is not my preference, simply because the video quality degrades so much that it doesn't make sense to use it. Not unless you want to slow down your selfie footage, which just sounds odd now that I even think about it. But nonetheless, 4K 60 is not something I prefer on either of these. I would always suggest go for 4K 30, you'll get much better video quality overall. Now what about the rear cameras? This is 4K 30 on both of these. We are once again using a studio light, and this time the studio light is a little bit more sideways, just to give it a higher dynamic range situation. And Both of them are just incredible, to say the least. Both are handling the shadows and the highlights impressively well. Neither of them are blowing it out, nor are they crushing the shadows. That is expected from the iPhone, obviously, and the Note is right there beside it. Details, however, once again, I do think it is just a tad bit better on the iPhone. I mean, I had to look at it for a while to really spot the mildest of differences. It's probably not gonna matter much, to be honest, because the difference is so minor. The one thing that I do like on the Note is just the higher amount of depth of field we are getting. It looks very cinematic and just overall better in my opinion. That is simply because of the much larger sensor on the Note 20 Ultra. And the iPhone, it can do it, or it could do it had it had a much larger sensor, but Apple is still sticking with the smaller, much older sensors. So yeah, when they upgrade, maybe we'll see better bokeh, natural bokeh, but nothing as such now. Also, I do like the colors on the Note 20 just a tad bit, simply because it has better vibrance, especially in the background. The blue looks very nice indeed. And now let's move on to 4K 60. I took this outdoors and I just wanted to see how, in a normal environment where we have natural highlights and shadows, how each of these perform. And there are very obvious differences between the two. I talked about how you'll be losing out on something or the other when it comes to 4K 60, and it's very clear over here. We are losing out on a tremendous amount of stabilization on the Note 20 Ultra. It's very shaky and really not that usable, especially handheld. But on the iPhone, we have good stabilization. It's nice to say, to be honest, but the dynamic range, man, it's not good. Let's be honest here. The Note 20 Ultra is so much better. Although it has lack of stabilization, the video quality and the dynamic range, with the highlights and shadows kept perfectly in check, it looks so good. The iPhone, not so much. Now, to just test out the overall versatility that we get from these cameras. I think we all know who's gonna be the winner of this situation, but nonetheless, the Note 20 Ultra and iPhone, both of them, they can go for the ultra-wide cameras. Both have incredible ultra-wides. I do think the Note looks better. It's a lot sharper, and the overall noise levels are just a tad bit lower. It's not a huge difference, but it is a difference nonetheless. And the best thing about the Note 20 Ultra is that we have up to 5 times optical zoom. Now, of course, it only kicks in once you get to 5 times, but nonetheless, the quality difference is incredible. On the iPhone, you can go up to 3 times, and that is, well, less than ideal because it's all digital and it clearly doesn't look even close to as good as a Note 20 Ultra. I mean, you are paying a ton of money for the Note 20 Ultra. At least you get the versatility, which is clearly better. Another thing that you get on the Note 20 Ultra, which is almost rare to see in any smartphone at this point, is 8K video. It is 8K at 24 FPS, and on the iPhone, since we don't have anything as such, I'm using 4K at 24Hz, and my god, the detail that you can get when we have ideal lighting conditions, like in this case, it is breathtaking, to say the least. I mean, wow. Valentine has not looked this sharp, even with my own eyes almost, I want to say, but nonetheless, the detail levels are incredible. But that's the only good thing with 8K. The stabilization is horrible, the dynamic range is not as nice, it's fine but not as nice. And yeah, overall, the ideal conditions, as I said in the S20 Plus versus iPhone 12 comparison, is that you need evenly lit environment and it needs to be well lit, and then you also need a tripod. So in that way, you'll get the best and highest quality video. There's also the crop when taking 8K because, you know, it's processor heavy and it needs to crop into the sensor and all that. But overall, 8K is still impressive to see in a smartphone in 2020. And it's still in the beta stage, as I would like to call it. It's still not perfect yet, but I mean, the potential is there. The details are truly something to behold. Now let's check out night mode time-lapse. Now Samsung has had this feature for a while now, but iPhones just got it. And I gotta say, the iPhone 12 looks incredible given that it never had night mode time-lapse before. It seems to be doing a tremendous job. Of course, both of these were taken on a tripod and the details are super sharp, noise levels are very low, and I do believe that the Note 20 Ultra does have a little bit more shadow detail. You can see in the darker trees, but one place where the iPhone does take a lead is in resolution. We get 4K 30 for the iPhone's time-lapse, while the Note is stuck at 1080p. I honestly don't know why, because time lapses are very processing friendly and 4K is clearly possible on the Note, but nonetheless I do think that both look absolutely incredible and gorgeous overall, and you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever when it comes to night mode time lapses on either of these. Now, for some harsher conditions, we have low light video here, and the Note is definitely better in my opinion. It has much better noise reduction, and just the overall levels of detail and all that, it is so much better preserved. I gotta say, the Note is very impressive here, and that could be simply because it has a much larger sensor. The 108 megapixel sensor on the Note 20 Ultra is quite a bit larger than that of the iPhone, and it's clearly visible that in low light conditions, it really comes into play. The amount of light it gathers, it just makes the image or video quality look that much better. The iPhone is not bad given that it's using a very old sensor, but it's clearly not as good. The noise is very high on the iPhone. The ultrawide camera has an even larger difference for some reason. I don't know why exactly, but the iPhone's ultrawide, it has disappointed me over and over when it comes to low light situations, photos and videos, so I think the ultrawide camera clearly needs an upgrade. It's just not as good. It's very visible. The noise is just going haywire over here. The Note on the other hand, nothing short of incredible, given that it's low light and ultrawide. Okay, now moving on to HDR on both of these. We have Dolby Vision on the iPhone 12 and HDR 10 Plus on the Note 20 Ultra. And since both of these are different forms of HDR, I cannot exactly show it to you, and most probably you wouldn't have the display that can support either or maybe none of these formats. It depends. But nonetheless, converting both of these clips to standard dynamic range on their respective devices, I kinda like how the Note 20 Ultra looks. The iPhone is technically just a little bit better maybe at times because it's maintaining the brightness and whatnot, but the Note looks very, what's the word? Cinematic. Yeah, that's it. I think that the way the Note is handling the highlights and the shadows and the colors, it looks very cinematic and I like this look. I like it a lot. But once again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, the HDR, when converted to SDR, it doesn't look even half as good as it does on their compatible displays in the raw HDR format. If you were to look at the HDR 10 Plus or the Dolby Vision recording, it would be mind-blowing to say the least. I mean, the quality of colors and whatnot you can get is truly amazing. But obviously I cannot show that to you. Kinda unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. Now lastly, we have slow motion video. We have 1080p up to 240Hz on both of these, and we can do super slow-mo on the Note, but since it's 720p, the quality is absolute trash. It's just don't use the feature. You won't be able to use it for any proper, normal, good quality slow motion. 240Hz is a much better middle ground, I want to say. And here, although the iPhone does look a little bit more detailed in terms of the details of the glass and whatnot, I do like how the Note 20 Ultra looks overall. Because of the higher contrast and whatnot, the iPhone, for some reason, it looks very faded, and I mean, it doesn't look as punchy as the Note, and clearly, in this situation for slow motion, the punchier it looks, the more dramatic, because slow motion is all about dramatic after all. So yeah, I do prefer the slow motion video on the Note 20 Ultra, at least for this instance. So that is a wrap for this comparison, and well, as I said before, the Androids have really caught up with the iPhones, to a certain degree of course. The iPhones, I want to say, they are not any more that invincible when it comes to video quality. They're still incredibly good. They still have just a little bit better overall details when it comes to the sharpness of finer details in the 4K 30 videos I showed you. It is noticeable when, you stack them up side by side and you give a very close look at it, you start pixel peeping, you'll notice differences. By all means, that is very much possible, but I don't think it's that much of a deal breaker anymore. I do think that Androids have done such a good job in terms of improving the video quality, despite not being as powerful as the iPhones are. I gotta say, they have done an amazing job. It's not just Samsung, even OnePlus 8 Pro has amazing video quality, and of course it has its quirks and all, so does Samsung, so do iPhones, but overall, all of these phones are very close to each other. Check out all of my comparisons, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because, man, I am impressed with Androids and just how good they've gotten, especially the flagships. The iPhones, it's no surprise really, they're amazing in video and they're amazing this year as well, but I think that it's time that the hardware got improvements, because there were a few instances, as I showed right here, in low light and whatnot. Clearly, the iPhones could have done much better had they had a larger sensor. But that's really not the case, and that is one of the reasons why the iPhones are not as incredible in video as they could be, given how powerful they are. So yeah, I do like both of these for video. They're just nothing short of incredible. The versatility on the Note 20 Ultra, and there are many other perks to the Note 20 Ultra because of its higher price tag and its flagship status, whatever you may call it. But yeah, I don't think you could go wrong with either of these when it comes to video, at least not at this moment. So that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.